We're here.
Yup.
We are here. Here we are. As you may notice that, you know, darkness is spreading. But it's a lot less light on the show.
Wow. Darkness is spreading is crazy. Framing it like an illness.
Well, that's a Dave Chappelle reference, but you know what I mean? Yeah, so we're here this week in White Supremacy. We are down a member, but he is with us in spirit as he is doing the Lord's work in the United Nations. And
all his business out there.
I mean, you know, he put it on his Instagram.
Always loves to put my business out there when I'm traveling and stuff. So put his business out there.
I mean,
all the way out there.
Yeah, yeah. He put it on his Instagram though, so I think that's for like public consumption, isn't it?
You feel me?
Yeah. So here we are. You know, we have a different cast today.
Darkness, everybody. Darkness.
Darkness. Darkness is spreading. It's the Supreme Asiatic Intelligently Divine.
Wait, you gonna go first? Boo!
Oh wow.
Boo!
It was crazy.
This is why we can never be without our father.
Oh no,
Our father is crazy.
That's
That's
crazy.
just wild.
Yeah. Full-time supervillain, part-time hater, Farouk Al-Saeed, and across from me is the illustrious. What?
I feel like you didn't do the whole miracle, or what's it called? You started it, I interrupted you, so you didn't say what Saeed meant.
Oh, I mean, you know, the Supreme Asiatic Intelligently Divine. You know, and across from me.
I believe in miracles.
You should do like Demon Time next time instead of Divine.
Do you like Miracle Whip?
I actually do.
Do you like Miracle Whip?
I do. And you know, when I used to do my state sponsored visits, they would write me down as like Miracle Whip. Like,
The whip and the wop. You were in my phone as the whip and the wop for the longest time, man.
Oh my goodness. But yes, it's a miracle. I'm happy it's not snowing.
Yeah, you know what's crazy is we are experiencing just like still very cold temperatures, but in comparison to what we've had, this feels like summer. Like the fact that it was like -6, but now it's like 30, and it's like, you know, it's comfortable now. It's tolerable.
But you said this was your weather. You said this is my season.
Oh yeah, I love this shit. Yeah, but I'm not gonna lie to you. It's been pretty cold. Yeah.
Listen, give me sun, give me hotness, give me 90-degree plus weather any day.
Next level sunshine.
You
Of
feel
course,
me?
listen.
Niggas love sunshine.
Niggas love
Hey,
sunshine. Yeah.
what's the yellow?
Yeah, come on, man.
You feel me? You got that chill guy music. It's your boy, man. We here. We're queer.
Okay.
We never lost sight. You know what I'm saying? Never like supremacy. It's your boy Trouble. We're gonna add some vibes.
Yeah. Well, to interrupt the vibes. A target of our ire and a lot of people's ires had a lot of things to say to defend himself the last week for performing at Trump's inauguration. Uncle Snoop figured out a way to defend himself, and Miracle, I think that he was talking directly to you.
You know what? I actually missed this, so clearly he was not talking to me.
Well, I would like.
Did I block him so maybe he couldn't reach me?
Here is Snoop's response to all of the backlash that people had for him for performing at the crypto ball at the inauguration.
I'm gonna answer with love. Y'all can't hate enough on me. I love too much. Get your life right. Stop worrying about mine. I'm cool. I'm together. Still a black man. Still 100% black. All out. Till you ball out.
Okay.
Or till you fall out. I ain't going nowhere. Come right here. Yeah.
You know,
On crypto.
on crypto. That's the
Get
problem.
Crypto on crypto. Here we go.
No, sir.
We gotta learn to pick each other up instead of pulling each other down. That's what we great at as black people. We great at tearing each other
Tear
down.
this off.
But wasn't he
You
the...
could be up 1 minute and they'll try to pull you down the next. But I'm a strong black man. I'm cut from a different cloth.
Sir.
Tear me down.
So much to
I'm
say.
on a God's child.
Why are we bringing God into it? Why do we always have to bring
You know
God
what I'm
into
saying?
it? God and Beyonce.
And the fact that, like, it's like it would be one thing if you just randomly showed up and performed at the crypto ball, but you're the same person who a few years ago said that anybody who performs for or backs Donald Trump is cooning, is a coon ass nigga.
Uncle Tom.
So it's like, what are we supposed to call you now? Now you're mad that we have criticism, the same criticisms that you had for anyone who would do the thing that you did? Interesting.
You know how like when you go through a breakup and you post like Bible scriptures and like affirmations,
man,
because you're like, you know what, I want you to realize I'm doing better without you. This was Snoop's version of that, with the music playing in the background. You know, it's like, sir, you messed up.
Right.
And even if you feel like you didn't mess up, why are you even making a thing? Just be like, I got a bag, I performed, I switched up, we're moving on. But again, crypto, we just saw 4 days ago, the deep fake, the deep seek, whatever you call it, AI, Chinese AI takeover, right? And that has caused one person said $1 trillion, another person said a few $1 billion market tank on AI technology and investment.
Yeah.
Crypto is as fragile.
Right.
As fragile.
Absolutely.
As these new tech AI startups. So again, you as a black man pushing what I perceive as like a Ponzi scheme on people, and then having the nerve to be like, oh, black people, you want to tear me down. It's like, no, you're failing on all the fronts. You did a Trump ball. You did it at this crypto thing, and you did it and try to do it. Like, here's my thing. You did it.
Right.
And you acted like you weren't ready for the pushback. Like, did you think that people were just going to be like, oh, you're performing as a little Trump inauguration and not care? Like, you could have just done like some promo, some leading up to it. You could have come out with some like fuck ass. Oh, you could have come out with some kumbaya statement, and you know, beforehand you could have had a whole bunch of stuff, right?
After,
you know, like when Dave Chappelle was on SNL, you could have popped up at the end and been like, yeah, too, I'm rooting for you to do right too, and that's why you catch me this weekend in DC. Something you could have done,
right? Yeah, yeah. It was just, hey, Uncle Snoop is here, and then you gave a really weak apology. Like, why is it black people want to tear you down, and why is there no accountability for the remarks that you said leading up to this, like in 2017?
Like a compilation of like Soulja Boy's response, Nelly's response, Snoop Dogg's response. Has Rick Ross even said anything?
I haven't heard Draco or Rick Ross say anything.
In my brain, Rick Ross is the mastermind. In my brain, Rick Ross said yes first, and then got everybody.
And got everybody else on board.
And it's just like, I'm gonna go back to my mansion and just like chill out, because like I don't think he said anything. What is the smartest thing to do? Like, I'm gonna say
that's the best way to do it. Is just, I mean, get your bag, you perform, and just go home. Like, you know. But again, you know, I said this, like, you know, we said this last week. We need to stop looking to these rappers as like our political compass. We need to stop looking at, you know, all of these performers and these entertainers who are benefiting from the tax breaks that Trump promised, and, you know, the high level tax breaks. They're going to be directly impacted by that in the most positive way possible. So of course they're going to go and perform there. You know what I mean? And, you know, like we said before, if they're offering, you know, $4 million, $5 million, anything north of $4 million to perform, I mean, you know, I'm sure that's going to be you're going to have to be a strong-willed individual to say no to that. So, you know, I guess this is what we expect. But he put himself out there to be critiqued, and it was upset when, you know what I mean? So you're on the internet, and Snoop, I think, if anybody understands the internet, it's Snoop.
Yeah, and then it's like, you know, beyond looking for rappers to be a moral compass, which I also believe we shouldn't do as people, it's like what Snoop did was he handed out the swords and equipped his fan base with smoke for anyone who would perform at a Trump inauguration or support a Trump.
Right.
And then he stuck his neck out and got mad when we used those same swords and gave him that same smoke.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I mean, that's kind of, I think that's what a lot of these black celebrities are doing right now. Is I think a lot of people in Jasiria kind of said this last week, we're going to find out who's really down for the cause and who's really aligning themselves with black views and values. And And, you know, Snoop is just like, hey, you know, Damon Young has said Snoop is, what, he's been a sellout, and Snoop's, Damon Young said that in 2020. So, you know, it just is what it is. But I think it's also interesting that Snoop is telling us to move beyond things. And we had very similar rhetoric, I'm sorry, from Elon Musk, who spoke at the ADF, what
far right.
Yeah, the far rights.
This is Nazi party in Germany. They're having their little convention, their little, you know, meeting of the minds.
Yeah,
like their fourth Reich, if you will.
The fourth Reich. Man, it's crazy because like everybody was saying about Elon not throwing up a Nazi salute, right? They were like, this is not the Nazi salute. This is him stemming on stage. And I don't know why we're going to like try to, you know, blame autistic people and all of their coping mechanisms on a Nazi salute. You know what I mean? But the thing for me was like, if the Nazis believe you throwing a salute, if all of these alt-right extremists believe that you're throwing a salute, why can't we just call it what it is? Why are we trying to make an excuse for, you know what I mean?
That's like if I went to a neighborhood with Bloods and started stacking on some Crip shit.
You know, come on.
And just said, my bad, y'all. I was having an autistic break or something like that.
Yeah, like
what, bro?
We're not gonna blame this on mental health. You know what I'm saying? Here's Elon at what does the acronym stand for, Miracle? Do you know?
No, I don't really know Nazi shit like that. I mean, I don't know Nazi things like that. Like I don't really but I can look it up. I know it's like the AfD in Germany.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they are the second largest right now party. And let's see, what is the AfD stand for? This is Germany AfD. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that I know like how to speak Dutch. No, nein sprechen Sie Deutsch. But here is Elon Musk at the AfD,
the Alternative for Germany. Germany. AfD is a far-right, white-wing populist political party in Germany. It is an organization that is Eurocentric, opposes immigration, has done what people would say amounts of pogroms, anti-Islamic, anti-immigrant, anti-black
of course,
organization trying to rebuild Germany through kind of like doing the Patriot Front rallies, stuff like that.
Yeah, like the Daughters of Liberty and all that other shit.
The marches through the city and all those things.
So here we go. Elon Musk at the AfD rally. Boom.
But it's this apparent reference to Nazi Germany's history that is drawing attention.
I think there's like, frankly, too much of a focus on past guilt, and we need to move beyond that. Children should not be guilty of the sins of their parents.
His comments quick to receive backlash. The chair of Yad Vashem, Israel's memorial to Holocaust victims, calling it an insult to the victims of Nazism and a clear danger to the democratic future of Germany. The remarks coming.
So yeah, it does not surprise me that someone who benefited from apartheid, who grew up in and directly impacted from the terrors and the horrors of South African apartheid, would go on a national stage on a far-right convention and say that the people who grew up with Nazi family members should not feel guilt about this. I'm not surprised about that at all. I think that is right on the money for someone like Elon. But it's crazy to me that the language that he chose to use was to not feel, to move past the sins of the past. Or how did he say that, Miracle? Was it move beyond the sins of the past? Like, we're still not feeling the echoes of that today. Like, we're not having, you know, anti-Semitic attacks. Like, the Tree of Life didn't happen in America, right? The largest murdering of Jewish people on American soil, where someone walked in with a Nazi-inspired manifesto and murdered 14 people right down the street from this office. And so to move what are we moving on from? Things that are still happening today? Like, and didn't you just say, Trouble, that how many mass shootings have happened in America since 2025?
That was Austin, actually.
Austin said that?
Yeah, that's that. But I don't remember the exact number, but it's still alarming, being that this year just started. How many mass shootings have happened over rhetoric that mirrors Nazi Germany? And I feel like no one's saying that people should feel guilty about it. I feel like what's happening is we're trying to make people aware of what was, so that they know what is happening now.
Absolutely.
So they know what to look out for when they hear similar rhetoric, and when they hear people, you know, referencing certain literatures and speeches and stuff like that. It's like, know that this came from somewhere, and know that if not checked, these things could turn out similarly to a Nazi Germany.
It's crazy because maybe I'm just old, right? But I remember growing up at a time when Nazis was bad. Like, being a Nazi was like a terrible thing. And now we have think pieces, and we have all these people online who are like defending it and trying to put, you know, apply a context or a pretense to it that never existed. Like, what happened to the part in history where, or just, you know, the good old days when Nazism was terrible? Like, being called a Nazi was a terrible thing. And now it's just kind of like, oh yeah, you know, we can popularize this.
Yeah.
We can make merchandise around this. We can put it on Lunchbox. We can make it accessible to people. We can make this into something that is, you know, a shaping of a brave new world. Right?
It's like, how do you not see the problem?
Yeah, right.
I don't think Nazism was ever something that was considered bad in America, in the sense that it was always profited off of. There's so many World War II movies. There's so many Nazi movies.
Yeah. Oh,
like,
come
I
on.
think of, it's not X. What was the Spike Lee movie where the guy goes to jail? He's the white supremacist.
American History X.
Like American History
That wasn't
X.
Spike Lee, though.
Was it Spike Lee?
No, that wasn't Spike Lee.
For some reason, I thought it was Spike Lee.
No.
But
Edward Norton's in there.
yeah, but Spike Lee didn't direct that.
No,
movie?
he did not.
Oh wow.
He did 25th Hour with Edward Norton.
Okay. But like, we've always had this, like,
Tony K did American History X. Yeah.
shout out to Tony K. Sorry. But we've always had so much promotion around, you know, Nazi history, the swastika, all of this stuff, right? It's always been a part of our visual discourse.
That's a hell of a
in
point.
America. And especially because it was really the Russians who kind of beat the Nazis.
Come on.
On top of that, and then we turn into, like, Russophobia.
Yes.
And like, it's like either Nazis or Russians are like the bad people, really, like, in American cinema or American TV. So like, I would say that, but I think also when Obama came to office, you did see the same rhetoric of, well, now we need to move beyond the past, right? None of us right now own slaves. Nobody here today owns slaves. It's the same.
Yeah.
It is the same rhetoric, right? The same thing that Candace Owens said, the same thing that Joe Rogan has said. This is the same thing these far right podcasters say, that we just need to move beyond, right? Because if you move beyond the violence, you move beyond the history, you move beyond what your government did, then you move beyond having to give people rights for the trauma and the pain that they have experienced. You move beyond the case for reparations, the need for reparations, the need to repair the harm, and then you can just be racist and bigoted again, right?
Right.
Elon is saying this not because he, like, cares for Germans. He's saying this because he wants to use X to change the elections like he did in America, so we can have this, like, anti-Muslim, immigrant sentiment, which again does not make sense, because where are all these people going to go?
Right.
If you wanted to just say, no, all of these borders are closed.
Well, we're going to ethnically cleanse, like Trump said.
But then, like, you also want to engage in extraction economies and steal people's natural resources. So are you trying to say immigrants cannot come to these countries because you need them to be workers? Or are you trying to say immigrants cannot come to these countries because you're just, like, hoping that you can start wars and get them killed?
The way that you frame this about Nazi regalia, symbolism being profitable, I never thought about that. But that is a great take, because what period of American history have you never seen a swastika fly on some form of media? Right? It's on everything.
It's like that, and like this. Like, what if the North lost the Civil War? All these, like, movies, right? All of these creative outlets are really fascinated with, like, what if Hitler won? Right? What if, the Confederates won?
Yeah.
It hasn't really stopped. And it is, I think, a normalized part of our culture. But then you do see, like, the Confederate flag everywhere. You do see people flying the Nazi flags. You do have, like, the Patriot Front and all of these, like, white supremacist entities, the Proud Boys.
Yes.
All these folks with their flags all over. It's just that we've always said, oh, that's just like boys being boys. It's like men and their toys doing something. They go, tiki torches, and then we're going to march on the weekends. Like, that's just like them running out with their friends. It's never really in the media characterized as violent white nationalism making a comeback, or violent white nationalism doing harm to folks.
And that's the thing that's the most frustrating to me, because you hear something as like the title of our show, which is called This Week in White Supremacy, and that's controversial, right? People have been put pressure on us to change the show, change the name of the show if we want to look for bigger sponsors or branding, anything like that. But it's never a conversation of why is it always that Nazism or this white nationalism is conflated with patriotism. You never have that conversation of why is it that whenever you see a Union Jack flag or the Blue Lives Matter flag, the Confederate flag, why is the Nazi flag always displayed next to it or directly behind it or adjacent to it, whatever? But that's always seemed as good American patriotism, right? None of those things are indicative of what the Bill of Rights was wrote upon, or the Confederation, not the Confederation, what is it, Miracle? What did Thomas Jefferson and that man write in America?
The Declaration
of Independence. There we go. I'm sorry. I'm not an American, so I'm doing what I can.
Now, listen, don't say that right now. Listen, the wrong time to say that.
Listen. I'm a dual citizen. I would like to reinforce that. I am a dual citizen. I am here lawfully.
Have you put on your cold boots? Listen.
Man, listen. But that's just such an interesting thing, though. It's just like we look at the Nazi swastika as something that really is as American as apple pie. Like, it really is one of those things that has ingrained itself in the American zeitgeist and is so palatable that people don't get upset when they see it. And when someone goes up on stage and they do the Hail Hitler salute at a swearing in of a president, it's just like Miracle says, boys being boys, right? It's regular. And at some point, I mean, you just kind of have to say, maybe it is. Maybe that it really is the American way, is just like, instead of stars and stripes, to put, swastikas and stripes on the American flag.
I think I've said this on this podcast before. I'm not 100% sure. But, like, when you play the little war games, like the mobile games, it's either on your phone or the, like PS5s and stuff. Yeah. You can pick which side.
Right. You've never said that, but no, you're right. Yeah.
Like, and I always say this. I remember, like, my friend was playing the video game, and I was like, "Oh, what is this?" It was like Call of Duty-esque. I don't think it was like Call of Duty.
Right, but I know the game you're talking about. Yeah.
Playing, and I was just like, "Oh, what are you doing?" "Oh, we're in the war, in the battle, da." And I was like, "Huh?" Like in World War II. I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "You're playing a soldier?" I was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "What are they speaking?" Right?
Were they speaking German?
Yes. I was like, "What are you?"
Sprechen Sie Deutsch?
I was like, what are they speaking? Because you don't always know, and it's not all, and so some stuff it's not like very blatant in your face that it's Nazism, but then also I would almost argue like the Nazi symbols are one of the most recognized symbols in the world.
Absolutely. They did a great job of branding.
And my thing is like compare and contrast that to like the Black Power fist,
right,
or the peace sign, or like any other like indigenous resistance symbols. It's very interesting of what our country promotes.
Absolutely.
And what our country quashes, right?
Yeah.
And so this idea that we have, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Like the Nazis is a multi-billion-dollar
absolutely
industry. And I know like in Germany, like the actual country of Germany, you can't do the Hitler sign.
Can't do it under penalty law. Like you can't do anything.
You can't do anything that promotes Nazism.
Right.
Which would mean that like if we had the same regulations in the United States, we would have a whole different culture. But because we have this counter culture, it's now populating again in Germany. So you don't have the quote unquote Nazi, but you have their kids and their grandkids doing the same sluggles, the same arguments, the same thing. What is scary to me is you don't have a lot of resistance to it.
That's the point that I'm trying to make. It's like, you know, we're talking about this off camera. I'm not upset at people throwing up a Nazi salute in public because I know that they do it behind closed doors. Right? Like, to me, it doesn't bother me. It's just like you're just showing me, you know, what you already been doing. So I'm not surprised by it at all. But I think that, like, to look at this as at one point, it was this subversive culture that was, like you said, counterculture. A lot of things like you've seen in American History X, you've seen like a lot of these fringe punk bands who were using, like, you know, the SS symbols and a lot of the numerology that's present within Nazism. That was kind of like their selling point. And now, because it's becoming mainstream again, we're having a conversation about the profitability of it, the relatability of it, and you're going to have naturally these sympathizers, right? And go ahead.
I don't know. I think it's like, to me, like when the ADL comes out, like, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Like when you have the actual resistance organizations who have created history of calling out everything that's harmful, and they just allow actual Nazi symbols to just like fly without any repercussions. It's like, oh, maybe this isn't a bad thing.
Well,
maybe
everything, the accessibility and the profitability of it has made it so it's like, okay, this is part of America.
But I think what people feel is that, like, there's no use in fighting anymore. Right? Because they see the grift. They see that, like, if you're popular enough, you can do whatever you want. Like, like Trump is right. You know, when you
too big to fail. You
know, when you get to, they'll let you do whatever they want. You know, and that's what Elon has shown. It's like, if you get enough money, if you become a billionaire, you can do a Nazi salute not only once but twice.
Do you think he paid the ADL off? He sent them a bag?
No, I just think that they chose to be in a partnership with him because he manages X and he will stifle Palestinian speech, and therefore he's going to be, you know, a better bedfellow. And I think that what we are going to start to see is anti-Semitism make a return, but then people saying, oh, I can't be anti-Semitic because I support Israel. And so that's what Elon Musk has done, right?
Right.
And you saw, you know, Netanyahu come out and be like, oh, he is a friend to Israel, therefore what he's doing is not bad.
But isn't that the conversation of Zionism versus support for Israel?
No, because he went to Germany and said, like, do not feel bad because of the Holocaust.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the point that I was trying to make is like, there's a difference between supporting Zionism and supporting anti-Semitism.
Yes, but I think that what you're seeing is people being anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
Actual anti-Semitic, and then being like, well, it's okay if I hurt Jewish people locally because I support Israel in the broad scheme of things.
I got you. Yeah.
Because Elon Musk has allowed white supremacists to come back to X.
Right.
He has allowed far-right organizations to come back to X. He has allowed the Nazi symbols to come back to X.
Imagine if they make a swastika emoji on X. Like, they made a swastika emoji on X. That would be crazy.
Because at one point, all of these people who had done all the stuff were banned.
Yeah.
Some people had lifetime bans on X.
Right.
And then he allowed them to come back because they're like, oh, we don't like black people. But then it's like, oh, you don't like black people, but then you make all these other slurs and nothing happens. And that is like, if you go on X right now, you can literally, their Google stuff, well, like, you know, search engine, well, you shouldn't, I don't know if you should promote that. But if you go on X, you can see things about, positive things about Hitler and positive things about the Holocaust. Because it's moved from Holocaust denial to, like, maybe the Holocaust probably wasn't a bad thing. And that is in part, a large part, because of the policies that Elon Musk has put in. And I think that is going to be a problem when now we have, again, the proliferation of guns and weapons within our society, and now these European societies, they are becoming more violent. They've been attacking people. We think about what happened in Amsterdam, right, when people were attacking a lot of the Palestinian, Muslim, and Arabs. You think about the lies about the grooming gangs that UK did. All of that was pushed on X.
Right. Yeah.
Elon Musk was a part of all of that. And he is literally this bored billionaire who's like, let me see how many people I can get hurt.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Just playing with a God complex. Like he's really, like he really has a magnifying glass against all of these ants. And that's just really, you know what I mean? I think it's an interesting way to frame it though, because I never thought about this as just like acceptance of, like you said, the Nazis
it's
kind of won.
normalization.
I mean, that begs the question: did the Nazis ever lose?
But what do you think a free speech purist is?
Right. Yeah. You think of someone like Joe Rogan. You think of someone like, you know, an Elon Musk. Someone
But
that's like,
free speech to say what? That's the problem.
Yeah, hate.
Well, free speech to say what?
Yeah,
Free speech to be a
anti-black
purist.
shit.
That's what they're
Yeah.
fighting for.
Yeah, yeah,
right? So
yeah.
they're fighting to say slurs. They're fighting to be anti-Semitic. They're fighting to be racist. They're fighting to be transphobic. They're fighting to be bigots because they don't want to deal with the consequences.
Absolutely.
You've always had the right to be a Nazi, but the problem is, what do? We punch Nazis, right?
Yeah, right.
We fire Nazis. We culturally isolate Nazis.
Mm-hmm.
So what they're fighting for is for a world where they can be a Nazi and there's no
recompense.
repercussions
Yeah.
for that.
And it's interesting because you mentioning the ADL, like the ADL has no problem trying to sequester black people. The ADL has no problem coming after Summer Lee. The ADL has no problem coming after Ilhan Omar or anybody that looks other than what they deem acceptable. So the ADL to me is just like part and parcel of this entire system.
I mean, there's the whole like drop the ADL campaign, but like, you know, I'm already on the mission, so let's go.
Yeah.
I
apologize if anybody was tuning in for jokes today because we actually just went serious as shit.
I do think that there are some organizations who are fronts for white supremacy.
Absolutely.
And the reason I say that is you always have to look at not necessarily who people uplift, but who they harm. And when you look at somebody's track record, and it's all black and brown people who are called out and harmed, and it's all white people who get second chances. This is not the ADL's first time giving a white person second chances.
Absolutely not.
For being anti-Semitic.
Look what they did to Kyrie Irving. Like, that's the thing. If Kyrie had to go do all these things, Elon didn't get nothing.
They were on the stage with John Hagee, who had said anti-Semitic things.
Yeah.
They had been with these Christian Zionist
but
pastors.
Kyrie was the problem. Like, that's what's crazy to me. Kyrie was the problem, had to go through. I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's like, it's just crazy. Like, to hear your point be materialized. Like, you can actually put a visual to it. And what Kyrie happened, 2 years ago? Mm-hmm. And they held him, they damn near crucified him.
Yeah.
Almost completely ended his NBA career over just sharing a video.
A clip of a documentary that he himself did not put out, right?
No, and he said, I'm just looking for discovery.
And learning, and that could have been a time to give people grace, right?
Absolutely.
That could have been a time to have we talk about Black-Jewish relations. That could have been a time to have a conversation about the slave trade and the reality of the slave trade.
And said we're supposed to move past the things that their fathers did.
And I do think that history is something that has been kept from us, and history is something that we have not been able to learn because we don't have the privilege of actually knowing our history.
Right.
And so for a lot of people, they're trying to figure out who they are, where they come from. You have ancestry.com, and you have all of these places where you can test your DNA to try to figure out who your parents were, who your grandparents were, who your great grandparents are, right? But you also got to think about a lot of historical records for Black people were not preserved, right?
Yeah.
Our hospitals get closed because they're in Black neighborhoods. Where do those records go? Who's in charge of moving those records? What happens when those hospitals burn down? What happens when, that the person passes on, in these small cities and these small, but these small rural areas, right? So as Black people are trying to figure out who they are, what they have done, you're going to run into different mediums of people. What was it like a few years ago? What was Tariq Nasheed's the colors?
Hidden colors.
The hidden colors, right? That was the thing that everyone was learning. A couple years before that, it was like Sister Soldier that everyone was learning from. We have these peaks and valleys of where we get our history.
Right.
Instead of why let me tell you about why this part of this our issues with the documentary. You could have a conversation. You could have brought the documentarian over, and we could have literally learned and engaged and pushed back and talk about, this is why this narrative is harmful. Like, this is why, slavery happened. Yes, Muslims were involved in the slave trade. Yes, Arabs were involved in the slave trade. Yes, Jewish people were involved in the slave trade. Yes, white people were involved in the slave trade. But it was not as this documentary describes it, and we could have moved on and been better informed, better engaged. But instead, you try to buck break him. You try to tell me I had all these 10 things to do, as if doing 10 things means you're no longer a bigot, right? I can say, as a white person, you call me a slur. You need to donate to this organization. That doesn't mean you're still not a racist.
You're just paying a fine.
And this idea that, like, this is somebody said, when you tell people to make a donation or to pay a fine, you're saying there is a cost to being a bigot, and there is a way to pay to do the things you want to do. So if we put in this narrative that, like, if you make a mistake, all you gotta do is donate to a charity, we say, if you're rich enough,
right,
you get away with it.
Exactly.
If you're rich enough, you can just, throw up, the little Nazi salutes and just, like, move on. But if you're poor, then we're going to put you in prison. If you're poor, then we're going to say you've committed a hate crime.
That is, wow. Yeah, that's really and truly it right there. And like, there is a way to look at this as how it boils down to an attack on black and brown people, because a lot of our cultural moments that get co-opted, right? We get crucified for saying, right, Black Lives Matter, and a lot of the other things that we have said in a lot of these spaces that get co-opted by the right and taken into and then become slogans and T-shirts and all these other things. Like, really and truly, like, they just hijack a lot of our rhetoric. But as Miracle just highlighted, like, we're the ones who bear the brunt of all of this. And it's just crazy to me, like, how Kyrie got, lambasted for all of this shit. And then now, we're looking at this pretty much the end. Is this the final nail in the coffin for DEI? Does it go out with a loud, with a whimper, or does it go out with a loud boom? Like, like the way Trump has been passing off all of this legislation. And I just pulled up these things right now that a lot of the executive orders that Trump has signed in are analogous to Project 2025. And here's some of the things right here. Suspending refugee admissions, suspending asylum claims, militarizing the southern border, declaring there are only two genders, drilling for oil and gas in Alaska, withdrawing from the Paris Climate Agreement, withdrawing from the WHO, withdrawing from a global tax deal, ending protections for federal workers, ending DEI, freezing federal job hiring. He just froze $3 trillion in federal spending, and revoking security clearances, and then ending efforts to fight misinformation. All this came from MSNBC, and these were executive orders that Trump passed that had roots or directly taken from Project 2025. And allegedly, he knew nothing about this. He didn't know anything about Project 2025. And now the lie detector determined that was a lie.
Yes.
And here we are. So, the end of DEI. This is a question I wanted to ask you, Miracle. There's doubt that Trump is making it that you can't, we talked about this last night. It's the federal government is not acknowledging Black History Month. Does that mean Juneteenth will be removed as a holiday?
It should not be removed as a holiday. But you know what has been
will it
morally and emotionally detrimental to me and my well-being?
What's that?
Is Target's ending of DEI.
Yeah.
And Target saying that, like, we're no longer engaging in
I seen one Target had Ben & Jerry's ice cream locked up.
Listen, they
you couldn't access it. They had it locked up.
They announced that they're going to roll back their campaign with Black curators and creatives. There are some Black business owners who said that they're ending Black History Month. And it's, again, like, I think every Black History Month they just try to figure out, make it worse than the one before. A lot of these D&I initiatives, people think it's Black and brown people, but again, white women.
Yeah,
the number one
recipient of affirmative action were white women.
Affirmative action and DI positions were white women, veterans who could also be Black and brown. And so again, people think they're coming for Black folks, or they're coming for their own. I do think that DEI is something that was, like, really, really important, because the way policies impact people are different. And if you stop studying those, you allow for harm to continue and be like, oh, I just didn't know. Right. That's what they want to say is, oh, I just didn't know. I just didn't know putting, oil in water was going to kill the indigenous population.
Right.
I just didn't know putting, lead in homes was going to make like black children, have issues. I didn't know that poisoning, land is going to cause black kids to have asthma. That's where they're trying to go with this. But again, I think the work is still going to get done. The research is still going to go. But a lot of white men woke up on Monday and Tuesday and realized their jobs were on the line. A lot of white women woke up on Monday and Tuesday and realized their jobs are on the line.
Did they have black jobs, Miracle?
I mean, basically with the DEI jobs, they have black jobs.
Trevor, what happens if Trump comes to your black job, man?
If he comes to my black job,
yeah,
we're not engaging with him.
We're not?
At all.
But what if he comes for your black job? He wants to take your black job.
If he comes for my black job?
Yeah, he said us having this is a DEI job. This is a black job right here.
Well, he can't, there's nothing he can say about that.
Are you sure?
I mean, like, he can say what he wants about it, but like, can he take it from us?
I'm sure he can. I'm sure. I mean, that's the thing. When Congress passed the, what was the bill that put nonprofits in jeopardy, Miracle? The legislation that allowed nonprofits to
the terrorism nonprofit bill. I mean, but that just takes away their 501c3 status, so then you just have to be an LLC and become capitalist. Like, oh, it's trying to force us into this capitalistic system. That's what it's trying to do. But I think that we've seen, like, this is nothing new, right? We saw over the past, 6 months, all these corporations say they were moving away from DEI, right? And we saw things that said DEI means die, right? We saw, all these
people earn it.
You try to say that, DEI
didn't earn it. Is crazy.
Was really all these unqualified things. And now we're looking at the numbers, and DEI is, white people and veterans. And now veterans are like, what the fuck? Like, what the hell? I need to stop cussing today. Veterans are like, what the F? Because, now their jobs are on the line. And people forgot that police officers and veterans fought to be included as diversity hires, right?
Whoa, what?
Yes.
What? I did not know.
Police officers and veterans said that they were a protected class, and therefore
I knew they were a protected class. Yeah.
Be under this diversity. Remember, after so many wars we've done, so many, human rights violations, but you got benefits and tax credits for hiring veterans, right? That's why so many police officers are veterans, so many people in federal agencies are veterans, because you got, the government pays itself to hire its own returning.
I never exactly knew
correct
what that meant to be a protected class.
Yes, so a lot of law firms would hire veterans, a lot of government agencies hire veterans, a lot of contractors hire, a lot of places, I'm a veteran.
Yeah.
Think about Congress, I'm a veteran. It's they're a diversity hire, but nobody says it like that, right? Nobody ever comes out after them, but you see all the time, oh, I'm a veteran, I serve this, I serve that. It's like that you're trying to do a little diversity stick. But
it's so yesterday JD Vance had said something, and Treble, I want to hear you weigh in on this before I give my piece, but JD Vance had taken a quote for Richard Nixon and said that education is the enemy, professors are the enemy, and he was talking at the National Conservative Conference, and he said that what we need now is less education and more wisdom, right? The screw face that you just gave. So I want to know what you got to say about that before I want to put context to it.
How the fuck are you going to get wisdom without education? Because wisdom, from my understanding, is taking what you learned, applying it,
come on,
and learning more about it. Embodying the knowledge that you learned through education, so that now you don't have to think about it so much. It's just like an internal knowing, right?
Yeah.
But how can you build a foundation of internal knowing without education? And I feel like him saying that, him coming against education is him essentially saying, hey, people are being taught that the things that we're doing are wrong, And in order for us to keep doing it, we have to make sure that people aren't educated on how wrong it is, so that it's easier to get more people on board because they don't know how harmful our tactics are.
Absolutely.
Right. And I feel like, so over here, I've been looking at this website, which was originally put together by Tima Okun with support from colleagues and friends about white supremacy culture. One of the main characteristics of white supremacy culture that keeps showing up in the show today is right to comfort and fear of conflict.
Yeah.
Right. So this right to comfort, some of the ones that have really shown themselves here are the belief that those with power have a right to emotional and psychological comfort, feeling entitled to name what is and isn't racism, white people or those with dominant identities equating individual acts of unfairness with systemic racism.
Right.
Right. So it's like, and then the right to the fear of conflict, people in power scared of expressed conflict and try to ignore it or run from it. When someone raises an issue that causes discomfort, the response is to blame the person for raising the issue, i.e. professors and educators, rather than to look at the issue, which is actually causing the problem. Equating the raising of difficult issues with being impolite, rude, or out of line, punishing people either overtly or subtly for speaking out about their truth and or experience, which is this whole clapback against education. It's like, well, you're telling people things that are making them want to come here and have open conflict, and I have a right to comfort as a white man. So instead of sitting and looking at the problems that are being raised in this conflict, I'm going to say that you and the way that you've been educating people are the problem, and that we need to just get rid of it completely.
Yeah, I mean that's a hell of a way to frame all of that, and I think it's very fascinating because, like, when JD Vance was at this National Conservative Conference, and I believe this happened in the recent past, and I just seen the video yesterday where he's quoting Nixon and saying that the professors are the enemy. Nigga, you went to Yale, right? Like, you went to Yale, and now all of a sudden education is the enemy. But this is the miracle's point. A lot of these conservative talking points is about demonizing education, kind of just like you said, but only retroactively because, as highlighting Miracle's point, they were DEI admissions. Legacy admissions were DEI admissions. So now all of a sudden that they can't get into the universities because their grades are shit, now education's the issue. Now the professors are the issue. And the thing that's interesting is the way that J.D. Vance kind of cherry-picked this quote from Richard Nixon. Is Nixon was talking about education and the press, right? And J.D. Vance conveniently left out the press from this talking point. The actual quote is, the press is the enemy. The press is the enemy. The establishment is the enemy. The professors are the enemy. Professors are the enemy. Write that on the blackboard 100 times and never forget. Richard Nixon said this, right? In talking to Henry Kissinger about, ceasefire in Vietnam on Christmas Day. It's, yeah. But it's very interesting that J.D. Vance left out the press and only highlighted the fact that professors are the enemy. Because we already know that the press is leaning towards white supremacy. The press is championing, the white supremacist talking points. It's defending Nazism. It's defending Elon Musk. Is the ADL is part and parcel of, the press making this, acceptance of Nazism, as we just kind of had a complete discourse about. But it's very interesting that, like you said, like now DEI in schools is the enemy because white people can no longer benefit from it.
Yeah. And plus, JD is a scrub. He doesn't want to piss off the press because they have too much dirt on them, in my opinion.
Fucking couches?
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's like that could turn into a slippery slope for him, or a slippery couch.
I do wonder if he picked out the furniture in his office.
Right.
Like, did he do a balloon pop? You know what I mean? Like, when they brought his couches out, like, you know what I mean? Was he like, no, I don't like that one. That doesn't, I don't feel anything for this couch.
There's no crevices.
I wonder if he has couch beds. Like, I wonder if that's his thing, like a couch bed, or is he more of a love seat person?
I think he's more of a love seat.
Yeah. Or like maybe he just maybe some days he likes a beanbag. That's disturbing.
Yeah, that's quite a visual right there.
Yeah, I don't think I want to talk about that anymore. But this talking about J.D. Vance, talking about these politicians, we have one of our own one of Miracle's favorite politicians in the entire world, went on The View and defended himself against it would seem like us. It seemed like us, but local Neanderthal.
Oh shit.
Locally elected Neanderthal John Fetterman. Wasn't that Britney Spears' husband?
I think so.
Yeah, I think that was Britney.
Or was it Fetterline?
He probably at home like, why the fuck did I catch a stray on? John Fetterman went on to The View to defend himself against this guy who has been speaking out. He was an officer that was assaulted at January 6th, right? And he had spoke out. He's been speaking out about Trump pardoning the January 6th insurrectionists, whom he refers to as the J-Day 6 heroes, right? Or J6 Day, whatever, heroes. And Fetterman had this to say. Miracle, I can't wait to hear what you got to say about this.
Y'all just want to get me
to Michael Fanone, who was nearly killed during the insurrection, has been speaking out publicly against the pardoning of his attackers. Officer Fanone publicly endorsed you in 2022, but this is what he said last week.
Come on, white man.
It's not the fact that he's the president that pisses me off. It's the fact that all these people that said that they were, going to stand behind us and that they were going to stand, shoulder to shoulder with us, absolutely ran for the hills.
Yeah.
There's a lot of John Fettermans out there in the world.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's why we're in the predicament that we're in.
Now, there are those on the left who feel like you have made a rightward shift recently, going to Mar-a-Lago, joining Truth Social, your positions on issues like immigration, fracking. What do you say to those who are now, in a sense, questioning your commitment to the Democratic Party?
Oh, well, first I wanted to just say I am so sorry for what happened to that officer. I mean, he's had a heart attack. His life, he almost died. I mean, I've had a stroke. Same thing. Absolute empathy and just appalled for what witnessing what happened on January 6th. And I absolutely would reject pardoning people that were involved on that. And so right word, that's just happened not to be true. I've been on record too saying I am not going to become a Republican. Although maybe some people might be happy on one side, but I would make a pretty terrible Republican because, pro-choice, really strong immigration, pro-LGBTQ, just pretty I don't think I'd be a good fit. So I'm not going to change my party. And if I am going to I'm going to show up. I'll give you the exclusive. I can announce. So I can't keep chasing down every last thing that's online because they're just happen not to be true, and just look at my votes.
So when this fellow white man that he apparently respected called him out, he not only said he was, not in favor of the January 6th pardons, he then somehow managed to circle back and sign the letter condemning the pardons to the January 6th people that he somehow magically forgot to see the first time it was sent around. And it kind of just goes to show you that white men support other white men, and white men listen to other white men, right? And the fact that he wants to say he's not a Republican because he is a strong Democrat on immigration, he supported the Lake and Riley bill, right, a co-sponsor of the bill that is contributing to the terrorism of the immigration community that they're facing right now. And so to sit there and act like, I just don't know why people think I'm a Republican, is fucking disrespectful, number one. And this idea that white men get to pretend like they are dumb when they are causing harm, when they're stupid, when they're being violent, is something that is very particularly only given to white men to cover up the violence and the pain that they are causing. Like Pete Hegseth, or whatever his name is, people are like, oh my gosh, he didn't know what fort he was at. Who cares? This man is talking about harming people. Right. And they, like Trump gets to pretend to be stupid, but then wants to go on to harm people and cause people to die. People are going to languish in these detention centers. People are going to die in these detention centers. People were sexually assaulted assaulted and violated in these detention centers before, and Fetterman was nowhere to be found.
Absolutely.
Advocating and fighting with this, along with the Shutdown Burks coalition. So to sit there and be like, I just don't understand why people think I've turned right wing is so stupid and disrespectful. But then to say, oh, this white man checked me publicly, so I'm going to now change my position and my opinion, shows that you only support white people, particularly white men, and that is the person you are catering to, and those are the people's lives you are fighting for. You're not fighting for everyone else's lives, and that is the problem. I didn't even know this man. It's just like disrespectful for no reason and harmful for absolutely no reason. That is the problem. He could believe whatever he wants to believe. He could support whatever he wants to support, but don't sit there and say that you're shocked and surprised that people have this view of you when poll after poll is coming out about what the people and your constituents want, and you vote against that.
Yeah.
And you don't show up. And then you just want to go on The View of all places, like, guess I'm not going to be Republican today. Like, why would you do that? Like, it's just like disrespect and contempt, like, for the people. Absolutely. And the fact that you are
playing in our face.
The fact that you're saying, like, I don't have a right wing shift, when literally the polls just came out that you've lost 5% of the progressive base, but you've moved over and they're getting people supporting you because you're Republican. Just come out and say with your chest that you're a Republican so we can move on and we can build our coalitions to fight for Democrats who are actually going to fight for the people, and not sit there and push out Republican talking points, but keep a D behind your name because you think that's the better odds that you have of getting reelected.
Right. I mean, Fetterman has done so many things that have been Republican leaning. And we don't have to look far back into the past to where he pulled a shotgun on a black jogger, right? And refused to apologize for that. He said he was doing his civic duty or whatever it is that he said he was doing. Fast forward to in the very, very recent past, refusing to stand when Josh Shapiro was talking. That was it, right? He refused to stand when Josh Shapiro was talking. And then, you know, the Lakin Act, his wife is an immigrant. So I'm not sure, like, I'm not sure how that conversation goes between him and his wife, whom people here love. Everybody loves his wife here. Him, not so much. And it's just wild to me that he can go on this show with black women and play in people's face and like, oh, you know, essentially like, oh, I think this is deplorable what happened at January 6th. But you're okay with people being deported and torn from their families. You're okay with all these other things happening as long as, like Miracle said, it's not this other white person checking you. Did you think that these black women and these women of the global majority are just going to sit back and, you know, that this is a safer space? You know what I mean? It's just wild to me. And there's already rumors circulating that he is still going to leave the Democratic Party and announce Republican. We're just waiting on the other shoe to drop. And I think this kind of ties in as, you know, we're closing to wrap up. This weekend, we seen ICE raids, right? As Trump promised that he was going to do with his border czar, he was going to enact the ICE raids. And on Saturday, I seen the numbers that were cities reporting there were 300 ICE raids on Saturday. On Sunday, that number more than tripled to 1,000 ICE raids. Who knows what happened throughout the rest of the week? And for a reason that I can only begin to speculate, fucking Dr. Phil decided to go on these ICE raids in Chicago for what he called transparency, right? And no one is... Miracle, help me on this, please. Treble, help me on this, please. The ICE raids are going to destabilize a lot of these cities. New York can't face mass deportation. LA's economy can't face mass deportation. Miami can't. Chicago, Philadelphia. These huge cities cannot economically sustain themselves without the presence of migrant workers, undocumented workers, workers of people who are the global majority that are doing frontline services. They can't, they will implode under the weight of their own greed and capitalism. But Trump and the border czar are finding a way to infiltrate schools, infiltrate daycares, go into homes, tear apart families, And people on Instagram, on TikTok, laughing at people's families being supported. And then someone who's supposed to be this mental health champion, Dr. Phil, fuckface, who is going on a ride along to see people get deported. Because, like, what, is this some sick fetish for you? Like, you want transparency? What, so you just want to see how people are, like, have their humanity stripped apart and take it? I don't know, man.
I never fucked with Dr. Phil. Even when I was a kid, like, I was always aware of how certain things made me feel. And whenever Dr. Phil was on TV, I never got a good feeling. I felt like he was antagonizing a lot of issues and just for views, you know what I'm saying? And as far as the ICE raids go, and everyone who's laughing and everyone who is for these ICE raids, I would say, like, in my opinion, if you're someone who loves America, if you're someone who supports America and stands firm in your American values, I feel like to support something like an ICE raid is very self-hating, especially being the fact that America in one way or another was built off of immigration in some way, shape, or form, right? It was colonized by immigrants, and then they brought more immigrants over to work on and till the land. A lot of the monuments that you hold so near and dear to your heart were built by immigrants. A lot of them forced to do work here and stripped from their families in other places, but still, nonetheless, this land was built by immigrants. These systems were established by immigrants who then had to gain their independence from other immigrants. So it's like, if you have a problem with immigration, then I question your love for America, really and truly.
And it's just really gross. Like, it's a gross exhibition. And, like, what are you doing? Are you conducting interviews? Like, why were you here illegally? Can you explain yourself? Or did you think you're never gonna get caught? I just want to know what was going through your head at the time. When ICE came to your door, did you just think that you were just going to get away with being here illegally? There's tax-paying citizens that you're taking money from, and
immigrants pay taxes, right?
I'm just trying to struggle with, like, what are you doing, man?
This is one of the reasons why I stopped showing, like, police brutality, because I do think a certain amount of people look at violence
as porn.
Okay. Thank you for, just jumping in front of me.
Sorry.
But, in Pittsburgh, allegedly 30 restaurants closed because ICE was hitting restaurants and people wanted to protect their workers. I keep going back to this idea that when the Biden administration said that they were going to start deporting Haitians, what would it have looked like if we had come together and fought against ICE then, when the raids were putting up to 300 people every single day, and grabbing people and separating people? What would it look like if we stopped saying that, children didn't belong in detention centers when Biden won, and we actually kept fighting for immigration reform? And we didn't throw away the immigration and the immigrant community because we thought that, like, under Biden we could breathe. And I hope that going forward, we actually this time stay focused on fighting for liberation and justice, and understanding that, like, everything that is happening in these past 48 hours has been, the foundation for that has been laid out in the past year and a half. And this is why we needed to stay woke. Yeah. This is why we needed to keep on organizing. This is why we needed to keep on doing the work. But I love the solidarity. I love that, restaurants saying we're not going to do this. I love that schools are saying we're not going to do this.
Yeah, I love that.
We are better for it. And I think what we're going to start seeing is the quick realization that the people have the power, not these politicians, and we decide and determine what happens in our cities and our communities, and we have to keep fighting. Immigrants belong here. I will always say, if you don't want immigrants, stop making refugees.
Yeah.
If you don't want immigrants, stop stealing from other countries, stop bombing other countries, stop interfering in other countries. And if we're not going to do that, then immigrants should be welcome here. Legally, illegally, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And somebody put out a tweet and was like, in the 50s, there were 50s and 60s and the 70s. Like, that's when immigration laws changed.
Yeah.
But until then, you just what they said, you just got on the ferry,
you just booked the ticket,
went to Ellis Island, signed and came.
Yep.
Right. So we now have immigrants.
Give me your poor huddled masses.
We now have immigrants saying that like other immigrants can't come here, and that makes absolutely no sense to me. Right. I think there's a duty,
because they came over the right way.
There's a duty and a responsibility for every person within the border, whether here, whether in Palestine, whether in the Congo or in the Sudan. If somebody's in your border, you have a responsibility to them. You have a responsibility to make sure they're safe. It's just, they're sheltered, that they are able to work, that they have dignity and determination. And I think that if we stop sitting there and saying that like our borders determine who has the right to live, and actually just have responsibility to people who are within the border, then all of this violence stops. Because then you have the food, you have the shelter, you have the health, you have the access, and then you don't need sanctions. You don't need to fight with another country because everybody in the border is taken care of.
We have yet to see an ICE raid in like a little Odessa. Like a majority white neighborhood or community where what houses Ukrainians or Russian immigrants or French immigrants or Canadian immigrants, right? Because the DOJ has said that most illegal immigrants are actually here from Canada. Right. So we have yet to see a mass deportation or a mass exodus of white people under these ICE raids. And until we see that, we have to internalize that as an attack on black and brown people. Right. Yeah. This is a whitening of America. This is just another way to do it.
When I was in high school, the first illegal it's not illegal, it's undocumented. The first undocumented immigrant was someone from the UK.
Right.
They were like, so like
my visa expired.
We came on a family trip. It was supposed to be like a 6 months like backpacking thing, and we decided to stay here, right? So the first person I met who was like undocumented, and it was just a white person from the UK. And then I met other people who came as dreamers and other folks, and it has always been this idea that like, I've had friends who go the legal way, who've spent like 15 years to get their citizenship. It's not easy.
It's not. It's a long process.
And it's a long process, and it's expensive. And so for me, I just think it's stupid. I think these raids are meant to incite fear, and it's meant to make a profit. These detention centers are private prisons who are getting paid per bed, per person. Yep. People are making money. And I think that, again, you should not be able to profit off of pain. You should not be able to profit off of prisons. You should not be able to profit off of deportation. And if Trump's friends were not making money from this violence, it would not be going on.
Yeah. No, absolutely. As we end this, as we always do.
As we proceed.
We'd like to end it with on a high note.
To give you what you need.
Yes.
Now, before we do this, the Brunch with a Black Man trailer is now out.
Yeah, can we get some hand clap?
Let's go. Like, you know what I mean? The Brunch with a Black Man trailer is now out. When is it? When's the first episode, Miracle?
The premiere is going to be March 15th.
Let's go.
And
March 15th. He's on YouTube. We'll be at Brunch with the Black Man. So we're putting some stuff out. We're relaunching. Have some really cool things. So just follow Brunch with the Black Man on Instagram. It's going to be big things happening this year.
Big blessing with the big blessings.
Listen.
And as we leave out our book, Little Leaders, Bold Women in Black History, we have one across from us, Miracle Jones, Esquire. Right? But this is Meet the Little Leaders. They're brave, they're bold, they've changed the world. Featuring 40 trailblazing black women in the world's history, this book educates and inspires as it relates to the true stories of both iconic and lesser known female figures in black history. So
Black History Month is like 3 days.
I know, right? Yeah. So yeah, if we even get a Black History Month this year, who knows?
Listen, it's our month. We gotta take it, regardless.
Straight like that.
Straight like that. All right. Well, any closing remarks?
Never lose sight.
Miracle. There we go. We'll catch you next week. Maybe with an additional light-skinned person or two.
Maybe. We'll see.